What did you take to the dev tools for Chrome that like was inspired from like VisBug? Because I remember there was a time when like the dev tools weren't really that fun to work with. There's like, there's a lot of it's a really complex interface like you were talking about earlier, and we've gotten a lot more capabilities over time. So I'm curious if you're like contributed any of the sort of like learnings that you had from VisBug into the dev tools themselves.
Awesome. Yes, there's two pathways to talk about. One is literally things that they took from VisBug and put into DevTools, and then the second one was like the long tail of my work was as new CSS features came out or HTML features, both of those needed tooling, or we would argue they needed tooling. We're like, you can't release the top layer of the dialogue without giving people a way to see what's in the top layer or where it even is. I'm like, if it's just a completely opaque space, like that's asking for trouble. And we can simulate what it is or whatever it is we need to do. So the first part of the work was like one of the earliest things, VisBug features that made it in Chrome DevTools. So when you do inspect element from DevTools and you hover over elements, you'll see a preview of the font, the font size, the colors, maybe some of the contrast and a few other things. That's one tool of VisBug. It's the inspect tool, and that was made to give designers a quick scope. Any y'all gamers, shooter gamers, quick scoping? No? All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, for anyone out there who doesn't know what quick scoping is, that's when someone runs around with a sniper gun and just imagine hands bopping in front of them. Bob, bob, bob. And then they see someone poke up on the rooftop. And for some reason, these psychos who play this game all day, they lift their scope to their eye and they shoot the person in like less than 1 second. I'm talking like 100 milliseconds. They point, scope in, zoom in, shoot the person and defeat them or whatever. And then they just keep running. And I'm not a quick scoper, but I've always loved this concept of like macro to micro, forest for a tree. So that particular tool is capable of showing you the styles on a tree. And overnight, again, that same dude overnight was just like, oh, that's a great idea. All we do right now when you hover over an element is highlight the padding and the margins. We totally should show this little tooltippy thing. So all of a sudden a tooltippy thing popped in there. And I had other like color tools. I had guides. I had measurement tools. There's like all sorts of things and you can see rulers in DevTools if you go turn them on. Anyway, okay, so there's like certain tools and aspects that they found really compelling. And also here's one really interesting thing about VisBug is VisBug exclusively works on collections. So a lot of times when you build an app that can select things, you'll start out by managing state and say, the selected item is this one. Right? And you say, state selected is equals this element or whatever. VisBug always assumes a collection. So there's never one selected item. There's always many. And a power of VisBug over DevTools. DevTools can only select a node at a time. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but you can only see the styles for one thing at a time. And VisBug allowed you to hold shift with that inspect tool and just be like, bing, 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 show me 5 different elements styles at once. And then I can compare them to see the delta. Maybe the color's off or something like that. So anyway, it's just kind of fun. VisBug always worked on a collection. And so DevTools starts borrowing all these features, and then all these new HTML and CSS features come out, and they refer to us almost like consultants on the CSS kind of Chrome DevRel team about like, hey, how do we visualize this? How do we help people feel empowered by this? Because we wanted to release new CSS features with an associated tool. We felt it drastically helped adoption and helped developers feel empowered by the features. So again, it was me wanting to empower those around me to get that stuff going. And that turned into things like I had a whole document at one time with like tons of different tools. And I tried to pitch DevTools not changing their entire tool set. The first thing I did was pitch to, okay, so nod along if you know that CSS is a fully typed language.
Fully typed?
It's a fully typed, and it's enforced at runtime. Nod your head if you know. No, it's nodding their head. So yes, CSS is fully typed. You've tried to put a color where a pixel value should go, right? You're like, font size, red. Does the application crash? JavaScript would. JavaScript would be like, and if you've assigned a value that I cannot do this operation on, I'm going to crash the whole thing. CSS doesn't care. It just steamrolls it and it says, well, is there another valid one that's trying to assign me? They're going to win, wherever they are somewhere. And it's a typed language. The font size can only accept a length percentage. That's a typed variable that is typed of other subtypes, which is length and percentage. Right? So it's very much like TypeScript. If you wanted to, you could do the whole CSS language from top to bottom as a type safe and developer IDE centric experience that only shows you valid values that you can provide at certain times and would show you red squigglies. Just no one's built it. I'm not sad. In fact, I'm really sad. I'm really angry and no one's built that, but we're probably past that at this point with AI showing up. So anyway, the first thing that I pitched the Chrome DevTools to was they were called typed components. And they were for CSS types. So if you saw a CSS length unit, like a pixel value, I was like, here's all the things users should be able to do with pixels that they do in design tools. They should be able to drag that to the right and to the left to make it go up and down. If they hold shift, it should go up by 10 and down by 10. Like here's the modifier keys, and I built prototypes, and we built that into DevTools. We also built the rotation, like an angle tool. So anytime an angle is used as a value, the DevTools can assume this angle tool can empower a designer or developer to tweak the angle. There was also, anyway, so this is what I meant by like type centric. There was a gradient type tools, like it looked at color stops and it had, anyway, it's focusing on types because then they were like small and bite sized and they could chew off what they could as they went. But DevTools was continually, their funding was cut year after year. So we saw a slowdown on fun features and a survival instinct kicked in as people are like, they're eliminating us every year. What do we do? And we're like, I don't know, but I don't know if you've seen DevTools team, but we are smoking in CSS land. Features are rolling out fast. And they were like, yeah, we can't keep up. And we were like, well, we know, but we're not going to hold it over your head. It's okay. We were really nice to them. So anything that they could produce was always good, but we were constantly consulting them on, we wanted developers to feel empowered. So yeah, I had to expose all the intricacies to people. Yeah.
Yeah, I love some of those tools that you guys added. I'm pretty sure the box shadow one was another one in there because like
that was an early one. Yeah, it had the little the dots you could pull around.
Yeah, when I try to ignore box shadows for a long time and just use that, and just because of using that, like the transition to like actual values was a lot easier because I was like, oh, I know they're similar to the sliders.
Yeah, the easing tool is another one that had an early implementation, but later we drastically enhanced it, especially when linear came out. The linear easing function needed some changes to the easing getter. We had a whole typography one because there is a typography one. It was built by an intern. That's so weird. So lots of features in DevTools, even in Google in general, were like intern work. So you'd have like interns building really cool user-facing things. And I'd be sitting there going, why don't you ask me? I would love to build this tool. And then I would, and then I could maintain it after the internship's done or whatever. But those folks leave. And so we'd inherit it was an MVP. It was a typography tool MVP. And it had weird limits. Like, why is the max font size 72 pixels? Can I use rems? Can I use ems? The answer was no. Like, well, then this is dead to me kind of immediately, but whatever. We wanted to enhance so many of these little tools that were for those moments. Yeah, box shadow tool, text shadow tool. There used to be a moment where you could hover in the styles pane, and in the bottom right, these little icons would pop up. We told no one that they were even there, and you'd have to click them to just experiment. Be like, what's that one doing? And it would open up something like the font tool or the shadow tool. Pretty funny. Had some growth issues there on DevTools as the styles pane started to get very overloaded. That element list, that styles list of all the styles being applied and all the cascade layers and all the, it got really hairy really fast.